Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I've been doing a series of webinars during the pandemic to learn something, entertain myself, and of course, be able to talk to my friends that I can't see in person because of the inability to travel. So that's one of the best things I like about these Zoom webinars is I still get to visit with all these friends that I know around the world, and they're all happy to come and join me here. Today, my guest is Susie Buck. And I met Susie, she is on Martha's Vineyard, and I met her 3 years ago, 2017. Yeah. So it's working on 4 years ago.
Yeah, this spring will be 4 years.
Right, when I was just about to go to Equitana for the second time, and someone from Martha's Vineyard asked me to come to Misty Meadows and do a clinic. And so I said, of course, why wouldn't I want the opportunity to go teach on Martha's Vineyard and meet the folks out there? And they've all become really great friends. So it's just really fantastic, Susie, to have you join me today, because I feel like, you know, looking at the room that you're in, I know it so well, and I just makes me feel like I'm back there. So welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share what we do here with everybody.
Great. So Susie, just to get us started, give us a little bit of your background. Like, how did you wind up working with horses, winding up at Misty Meadows?
I have been riding since I was, before I can remember. I think my mom said I started when I was 3 or 4. Actually, when we lived overseas, we lived in Haiti when I was younger, and I rode with a wonderful German woman who was there. And I honestly barely remember it. It's more just like snippets and then my parents telling me. So that's how long I've been riding. And I started competing when I was 9 in the 90s in Connecticut, sort of the classic hunter, short stirrup, background, and got into hunter jumpers, and then was lucky enough to continue riding when I went to high school. I went to high school in Middleburg, Virginia. I went to Foxcroft.
Oh, wow, that's in my backyard.
It is in your backyard.
I go through there every week.
Yay, Foxcroft. And so I was able to compete for school, which was awesome. So it's a whole nother way of sort of being with horses and partnering and competing with horses, because you ride other schools' horses when you get there. So it's not about showing your own horse. It's about getting on a horse and being able to prove you can pretty much ride anything.
So I just have to, not everybody starts riding in Haiti.
We lived overseas. My dad's work brought us to Haiti, and my earliest memories are from there. We moved there when I was 3, I think. And there was a wonderful German woman who I remember being just fantastic. And she had a riding school, and sort of part of that expat thing in the 80s. And that's where my mom rode. And so I got started literally at my brother's birthday party when there was a pony and there was no getting me off of it. I think I was 2. And my mom was like, well, here we are. Okay. And all my life, like, she's like, both my parents are fantastic at knowing that, like, that was something that made a difference to me, and helped me grow as a person and just made me happy. So yeah, started early, and all my earliest memories of horses, like, have sort of like a tropical slant to them.
Yeah, I bet.
The smell of wood chips covered in citronella, because that was, you had to keep the bugs away in a tropical country. So
wow. And then I just have to ask, where in Connecticut that you live, because I'm from Connecticut.
West Hartford. We lived in West Hartford, and I rode out in Simsbury, and actually rode for a time at Ethel Walker. They had a lovely school program. And when I was looking at boarding schools, my mom, we looked at Ethel Walker and Miss Porter's, and then I wanted to stick closer to home, so we landed on Foxcroft. But Simsbury and Avon, I rode in both those places. We lived there for 7 years, so I switched barns at one point. But and it was a lovely place to show and learn about, like, the showing and get into that as a kid, because there was a large community of kids my age doing that. Early 90s hunters in New England were like solid showing.
Yeah. So, okay. So you went to Foxcroft, and then after Foxcroft, what happened?
I went to college at Tulane in New Orleans, and I just sort of took a year off to get acclimated to college. And then obviously time off from horses only lasts for so long. And I started teaching in the summers. I was riding at a barn there, just a regular public barn there. and then started working for them, which was awesome. Equest Farm in New Orleans. And so that's when I really actually started teaching for the first time. And just simple things, pony camp, a few lessons here and there, mostly in the summers and a little bit during the school year. And then after college, I moved back to the Washington, D.C. area, which is technically where we're originally from. We moved around a little bit, but my family's from the D.C. area. And I was born in D.C., legitimately, not just over the bridge. So we moved back to D.C. And when I was younger, and then I went back there after college. And even though, I was sort of on that track to have a quote unquote normal job, non-horsey job, I still rode. So I started working downtown doing, I call it my former corporate life of fundraising for nonprofits and nonprofit administration, which was awesome because it's great, when it comes to running any type of organization, having that experience was wonderful, particularly fundraising background. When I love nonprofit work in general. So as I moved to the Vineyard about 10 years ago, I was still doing nonprofit work and riding when I discovered Misty Meadows as a volunteer.
Now, how did you wind up going to Martha's? Was that just a random event or what?
I grew up coming here with my best friend's family. And so I've been coming up here since I was 14, but just, as a tourist. And then later on had longer stints during the summer, spending time up here. And I was up here and was offered a job at a time when, after 2008, when the crash happened and things shifted around, and I lost my job in DC, I was at a point where it was, I think 2010, I came up here. And I had a job for the summer and then decided to stay. So I was ready to kind of do something different. And people who come here and know the island kind of knows, like a place can kind of call to you, and it just felt right to stay, even though it's not the easiest thing living in a smaller seasonal community year round, but it's been awesome. So,
and of course, the only way to the island is by ferry or by plane. So it's not like you can just hop back and forth between the mainland and the island. So I think that's one of the great charms. I also have taught a lot on another island called Vashon, which is off the Seattle. Yep. And I went there for 11 years to teach clinics. And so when I got to Martha's Vineyard, it's like, oh, this is the East Coast version of Vashon Island. Yep. But there is uniqueness in terms of having to take a ferry, being able to get horses on and off, being able to participate in things on the mainland. It's if anybody's ever lived on an island, you realize that there's a lot of logistics involved, and you hope the ferries run. Yes. My last trip, I got off island and the next day the ferry shut down. So I was really, really glad I went off on the day that I did, because I'm not sure how I would have negotiated everything I had to do. So,
yeah, so it's a lot special when you get back from a long trip and you get to the ferry and it's like, just kidding. And you're like, okay, another night to my, and you're on vacation, and yes, it's great. You think, oh, it's another night on vacation. But after you've traveled a bunch, you're like, I just want to get home.
Yeah.
So there's some special things to negotiate, particularly when it comes to managing or owning an equine on this island. We have a lovely equine community on this island, and we're all really supportive of each other because of that. You can't just always have your vet just like pop out of nowhere. So supporting each other with knowledge and resources is a wonderful thing about this island.
So how big is the equine population on Martha's Vineyard? Do you know?
Recently, I don't know. I was told a couple years ago that someone did a survey and there's about 800 horses on the island. I'm totally willing to be corrected by anyone who knows more recent stats, but I would assume that that's similar. There's a lot of smaller farms tucked away where people have their own horses. And then there's a lovely model at various barns where there's a co-op where people have horses, 5 or 6 horses together, and they share chores and board, and it's a lovely way to have horses together as a little group. And the horse I leased a few years ago for 5 years was at a co-op barn, and it was awesome. Lovely community.
And the population is really diverse. I mean, that's one of the things that I noticed when I went there to teach, is you have everything from Western to trail riding to dressage to I don't know if you have any jumpers.
There's less jumpers. It's funny that's one thing in my sort of evolution as an equine enthusiast, if you will, and then professional, I moved to the island and got into dressage because there was not the hunter jumper, or even I was even looking for a venter. I was like, I want to jump, and then everyone was very dressage based at the publicly available lesson barns, which just turned out to be great because I ended up getting connected with a lovely woman and leasing her horse for 5 years and finding a fantastic classically trained dressage instructor who was wonderful, and just opened my eyes to everything that classical dressage has to offer about how horses and humans connect and interact with each other and work together physically with each other, which, being a hunter kid, was just not what I had been exposed to, because it's just a different modality.
Especially in the 90s, the evolution of hunters I've watched for many years, and it's changed. So there's this unique horse population. You're now on island, you have a job, you're leasing a horse, and then you volunteer. Is that what you said? You volunteered?
Yes. I discovered Misty Meadows at just an announcement for an open house. They had just sort of pulled together some pilot programs, and the thing that drew me to it was the equine assisted learning side of things. It wasn't just about teaching students to ride. They were piloting programs, doing unmounted, just equine assisted activities, which has a bit of a nebulous thing about it. The industry in general is getting better at, like, how do we describe this and how do we let people know what we're doing and how we're doing it? But it's basically activities with horses, and it's usually unmounted, that it kind of help you discover things about yourself, setting boundaries, connection, practicing empathy through just different activities. And it sounds vague, and it's vague for a reason, because it can be so many different things. And that whole idea was like mind-blowing to me. It was just another way to do and connect with horses and do something. And I was like, ooh, I want to be a part of that. I absolutely am there. So I remember, to this day, I still have the email that I wrote Rebecca Miller. And she was like, yes, please come. And so I started volunteering, and then it just took off from there.
So when did you start working at volunteering at Misty Meadows?
That was 2016.
Okay, so that was before. So I was there in 2017. So now
that was literally the fall before we met you.
Okay. I think it's time that we talk a little bit about Misty Meadows. It's a very unique place. It's a very special place. So what is the history on Misty? I mean, Misty Meadows has a very long history, actually, on the island. And if you could just kind of give us a little bit of its brief history from before, and then what the evolution was to the more recent times.
Yes. So it started as a privately owned property. It actually was a sheep farm way back in the day. And it was Nat's farm, which for decades was a bunch of smaller farms that were all part of a larger sheep farm. And after the war, World War, I believe, II, it was preserved as a barn. There was a barn there, and a family bought it in 1972 and helped bring it about to what it is now. So it went from being a farm for sheep that then was actually, like, half of it was preserved as a nature conservancy and land bank property, and then part of it became an actual horse farm. And that's when, actually, it was 1972 that Misty Meadows became Misty Meadows, and it was its original name. And it was owned by John Alley and Bill Honey, helped to bring it about to what it is now. And under them, they created the farm, and it was a publicly available barn with lots of riding available and stalls available in the way that you think of a traditional barn. And then there was another family, the Dumont family, after that, purchased it. and continued operating it as a commercial barn. And it just is very centrally located on the island. And so it's nice. It's an easy place for people to come and use the facilities and ride in the facilities and from other places on the island. And I believe it was in the 80s. I clearly need to get better on my timeline. I'm bad with dates, even in history class. That it was purchased by Carol and Jerry Kenny. And it was, I want to say it was the early 90s. And they are the ones who made it the barn that you see physically now. And they added a very large indoor ring. And then they worked with Sheriff's Meadow to fence the property in the front so that we have huge tracts of fields for turnout, which is amazing. And we actually lease that property still to this day from Sheriff's Meadow. We have an agreement. And then in 2000, the Kennys used it as a commercial barn somewhat. They had private boarders, and they one of the Kennys family members ran a program out of here. And then as that sort of changed and they ended up having it was unused for a little while as the family started to use the property differently, and it sat less occupied. And so Carol and Jerry Kenny were fantastically lovely, generous people, wanted to make it available to the community. So they supported us running some pilot programs. When they first got together, there was a small group of people that included our executive director, Sarah McKay, and then Rebecca Miller, who was the program manager at the time. And they got together with some members of the community to figure out what's the best way to make this facility available to the island community. And it was always the idea that it would be a nonprofit. And so it was a little fledgling operation trying to figure out what people needed and what people were interested in. And that started, I believe, in 2015, early 2015. I started volunteering. The thought process started in late 2015, early 2016. And then I started volunteering in 2016 in the fall. And that's when they were ready to launch some of the pilot programs. And
so essentially the Kennys purchased this property and turned it into the facility that it is today. In other words, all that beautiful woodwork behind you and the incredible indoor arena and the heated barn aisle and the solar panels, and it's an amazing facility. It's really gorgeous.
And actually, now that I'm remembering, that was 1999. That was the late 1999. Right. So this barn in general, in the grand scheme of barns in the world, particularly in New England, it's much newer. And so they modernized the facility and used it for family and friends, as well as horse council events. The island has a long history of having a wonderful island horse council. And so they were a part of the community, but it was private. And then as they were using it less and less for family, Jerry and Carol wanted to figure out how to make the property available to community, because it's such a lovely facility and really so available to help the island community overall, and not even just for like the island horse community. So that's when Carol is still involved in what we're doing and how we're doing it, and loves, hearing about what we're doing in our programs and how we're continuing to serve the community. So they modernized everything. There's also a house here that is attached to the property that is available, not for public rental, but we do use it to host different clinicians like yourself, who come and even eventually want to expand our ability to host corporate events so that we can continue to grow make it more available to more people, not just about the island community. It started with the island community, but there's a goal to make what we do and how we do it more accessible to more people. And there's it's great to actually have physically like a place for people to stay. And we have had some folks use it for weekend retreats and corporate retreats, where we've built in equine experiences to their retreat programming. So we hope to do more of that.
It's a super unique property. It's gorgeous. And it's, as you say, it's centrally located. It's not far from the airport. It's kind of on the higher part of the island, a bit more open. And I think one of the amazing things is it's right next to the state forest, where
Yes.
I went and bicycled around every day.
Yep.
So it has access to miles and miles of trails. It's a really unique property. It's an amazing property. And so basically what the Kennys did was they donated this to become a nonprofit to serve the island community with activities involving horses. And I think that's part of the mission of, it's in the mission of Misty Meadows, that it's horse included activities, correct?
Yes. In 2016, the Kennys donated the property to us. We've been running programs, pilot programs, and expanding our outreach into the community. And so they very generously, they were enthusiastic about what we were doing and donated the property to us, which was amazing because we had already had plans to fundraise to purchase the property. And there was a lengthy many year long process to purchase the property, and they gave it to us. And it was just the most amazing thing ever.
So now since then you have also expanded. So the program started with recreational riding and EAL, right?
Yes.
And so recreational riding for people in the community, and then the equine assisted learning. But since then you also incorporated PATH,
Yes.
the therapeutic riding. So how did that come about?
So the mission of Misty Meadows is to provide a nurturing environment where horses and humans work together to transform lives. And I can rattle that off quickly because I feel it and I know it. It's wonderful. You can really, and it's open because there's so many different ways that we can bring that mission. So we have our recreational riding, which is considered, sorry, our phone is ringing. So we started out with recreational activities, and then our unmounted equine assisted learning activities. And then back in 2018, we merged with another island therapeutic riding program that was getting ready to retire. And we got on the path, as we like to say. And we worked towards becoming PATH certified and accredited as a facility. And sorry.
Okay. And that actually, I think it took you well over a year to complete that part of your activities with the help of someone off island who was really instrumental in bringing that forward.
Yes. It is a lengthy process. There's the process of becoming PATH certified as an instructor, which we all started, and that is how our current program director, Liz Adams, started off as our PATH mentor. And she was coming from off island. She's been involved in PATH for many years, back to when she was in college, and is a wealth of knowledge and experience. So we felt it was really awesome and lucky that she was basically right in our backyard at Cape Cod. So we started with getting the staff and the instructors certified as PATH certified instructors. And then that was the first step to getting the facility overall, which is about a year-long process between literally physically building things, making sure that things are up to like PATH code. Because the best thing about PATH is that they really come up with standards so that when you walk into a PATH facility, you know that you are going to be getting a certain level of service, and that there's a certain level of education of the people providing the service that is specific to them in the way that they might want to do it, but like actually very consistent, which is awesome. Apparently I cannot get this phone to stop ringing. I'm sorry. I'm going to just unplug it from the wall here.
Okay.
There we go. Pardon me. Apparently it's not ringing in the rest of the barn. I don't know. So yes, and now we're in our second year. So we were officially certified at the beginning of last year, 2020, and we just now got our certificate for this year for 2021. So we continue to be a PATH certified facility and meet the standards. And we, in those standards include not just how you run your facility and how you're handling paperwork and the different things about meeting the needs of the students, but it's also how you keep your horses levels of, they have, requirements for making sure that the welfare of the horses and the equine team is taken care of, as well as what actual services that you're providing to humans. So it's really a nice rounded.
So then Misty Meadows is a nonprofit that provides recreational riding, EAL, and therapeutic riding to your to the island, essentially.
Yes, and we're actually, we had to start small and reach out, and grow from there. So it's predominantly for island communities, and we're looking to expand how we can offer our services and provide our facility for people who are off island. Because we definitely believe in the work that we do and how horses and humans coming together to explore themselves and the natural environment can help people grow and honestly just make the world a better place by helping people be the best versions of themselves.
And of course, your island population changes dramatically come summertime. So
yes,
in a normal year, and COVID's not normal, but in a normal year, I think you go from 15,000 to,
on any given day, 75 to 120,000 between July and August is what I've been told in the past. And that includes people who might just be over for the day. So consistently, I think it jumps from like 16,000 to about 75,000 of people who are summer residents. But you then on top of that have people who are just coming in to visit and then leave. At any given time, you might have up to 100 or 125,000 people on the island. So
it does mean that who you could service and who you do service between summer and winter vary tremendously.
Yes. And we do our best to keep the services that we're providing for our year-round residents consistent, and then be able to open our doors, whether it's through additional programming or smaller mini camps, things of that nature, for people who might be visiting. And we also recently this fall launched our program called Journey with the Herd, which allows families to come in and experience an equine assisted program for them, that's tailored to them, their needs, what their family might be looking for, to be able to come in, particularly at this time, with COVID and everyone dealing with things in a different way and having different challenges, giving people a space to come and do something together as a family unit. And it could just maybe be to have fun. It doesn't necessarily have to, and that alone has so much therapeutic value, and not everyone has access to horses. So just being able to open up our doors in our herd in a safe COVID environment, because we can do so much outdoors, and we have this lovely giant indoor ring that has doors on all four sides. So there's fresh air going through, and we have a mask protocol. So it's a uniquely safe environment to be able to come together and be able to, keep our distance and stay safe, but still engage with each other and do things. And then of course, engage with horses that just add an extra level of magic.
And so, of course, we then have to talk about your herd. The most important part of this whole program are the horses that you have, and how you have a varied herd, and of some of them older.
Yep.
And so their health and well-being is one of the most critical things in terms of having a program. If you don't have, healthy horses that can do their job, you don't have a program. So tell us a bit about your herd.
So we have 3 mares and seven geldings, and they range in age from 12 to 30. I think Chardon is now 30.
And I just want to share a picture so that people can see a picture of what happened to the sharing options. Hang on. I happen to have a picture here from when I was up there last so that people can see one of your herd members.
There's Lily. She's our Gypsy Vanner. She's one of our mares. And that is our Isle and all of our Surefoot pads. Actually, some of those are your Surefoot pads.
Yeah. I came up to do a photo shoot, and that's where I found this picture. So,
and that's me. And there's me. Yes, we have we have 10 horses on the property, and they all live outside. We believe as much as possible keeping our herds outside 24/7. So there are the only time that's an exception is when there's extreme weather. And it only happens maybe once a year at most in the winter when it rains or snows, and then there's like a sudden frost, or it freezes, and then you have the ice. It's really mostly about ice. And for the most part, our horses are pretty safe. Even when there's occasional ice patches and whatnot, our fields are big enough that it's easy enough for them to go around, but sometimes with the right storm, it's just not. So there have been occasions when we brought the entire herd inside and everyone's cozy in the barn. But for the most part, our barn is used for horses to come into class and get ready for class, and have, or they might have a vet appointment or get some body work done, and then they go back out. And we like to keep our horses in herds as much as possible. Occasionally, it might be a herd of 2, depending on what's going on. But for the most part, we have our horses in herds of 3 or more. And sorry, I have a cat trying to desperately get into the office.
That's okay. Cats always get to interrupt lecture webinars. So it's okay if you have to open the door for the cat. I totally understand.
We have all sorts of animals here at Misty Meadows. So yes, our herd lives outside 24/7, and that particularly with the elderly crew, which half of our horses are over 18, which is considered senior, and it really helps with the arthritis factor. Just the general being able to keep them moving, keep them moving around overnight. Even if it's colder, it seems really rough outside, and sometimes when it's snowing, but everybody has a run-in. They have access to large run-ins to get out of the weather, and where appropriate, horses wear blankets, but our horses stay unless it's for like a medical reason and like a certain little patch or something like that. Everyone stays fully fuzzy. And then we have blankets as needed on top of that. So they're really pretty toasty, and they would honestly, they come in and they're itching to get back outside. When they do have to spend the night overnight, everyone really would rather be out there. And, husbandry side standpoint, keeping them happy and mentally stable, particularly there's a unique, it's a unique ask.
Oops, you froze a little bit. Uh-oh, you froze a lot.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back.
Back. Let me make sure I'm on the right. Yep, I'm on the right Wi-Fi. So we have horses, we're asking our horses to do various things and connect with people on various levels. So we have our recreational classes, we have therapeutic classes, which run the gamut from someone maybe dealing with the challenges of social emotional or anxiety, or perhaps even PTSD, to challenges that might be more physical, where you have a physical neurobiological connection that might end up being more of a physical impairment. So we can serve all levels, and we're asking our horses to serve all levels of people and meet them where they're at. And then in addition, we also do mounted archery. Can't forget mounted archery, because I know we have talked to Annie and Danielle, so we want to make sure that we don't forget to mention that. Which in and of itself, you know, all of these things, and we fundamentally believe here that all interactions with horses are therapeutic. And it's a lot to ask of. It's not just your regular school horse. There she is. Miss Danielle.
There we go. So this is just in the indoor here. This is just one of the pictures that you can see. It's quite a large indoor, and it allows for a lot of different kinds of activities because of its size. You can split the arena. It's really quite impressive, but just so people can see what you're into.
And thank you. In our very large mounting block, which is amazing. It's like Fort Knox. You do jumping jacks on it. You could, you know, mount a horse from a running sprint if you wanted to. So we have various, you know, what we're asking of our horses is pretty large. So the idea, or vast, I should say. So coming in, doing their job, and then being able to go back out and live in a herd and just be horses has always, from the get-go, been a fundamental tenet of how, you know, our horse husbandry practices. And over the years, you know, through meeting different people and learning new information over time, and just as the horse industry grows overall, we have, you know, made tweaks to how we keep them. So we have a couple that tend to have metabolic issues. You know, we have a couple of ponies who, these are grass fields, and sometimes, you know, keeping ponies on grass fields in the spring and in like the, you know, the fall when we have the grass surge is really tough. So we actually, this past year, with the help of our one of our instructors, Annie, and longtime friend and supporter and volunteer, is who you have had here on the show. She uses a track system at her barn, and she was like, you know, you guys really, you need to just like, let's do this. Let's build a track. And so we put up a pasture paradise. We have 2 paddocks in the back of the property. Everything at the front of our property is large tracts of, you know, there's each pasture, I think, is 2 acres. And we have 4 of them next to each other. So it's a considerable amount of land. And we haven't gotten to the point where we have thought about making a pasture paradise out there. It would be a little more involved because we lease that land from Sheriff's Meadow. And even though we have for a long time, it's not just ours to do with what we would like to, but the property on the back side, the paddocks on the back it does belong to us. And so up went the pasture paradise, and it was great because being able to look into why that system works so well for horses. And I know you've talked about it because you have your guys on pasture paradise now.
Yes, and I've just extended it. So now I have another field with a waterer in the other field. And so now I've extended it to a keyhole shape around the waterer. So pretty soon they're going to lose the first waterer and they're going to have to go further.
Ooh, challenges. Well, and it's funny because we were just talking about combining these 2 pastures so that you could separate them if you need to, or you could have it be a larger paddock overall, and you can just put things on different sides. So the more space you have to make them walk around, and you know, and we see it. I mean, just throughout the day, they mosey around, and then when you need to, you can open up the middle and you can let them have some grass. So for those horses that eventually will go back out, our whole herd, save 2 who are escape artists and need that like wooden fencing. We're in the process of fixing our fencing in the front, and the electrical tape has just gotten a little weak over like across such a large span over the years. It's pretty old. And so we have a couple that just are like, nah, and just walk right through it. So those guys are in the back. And there's only 2 of them who are the most notorious.
Yes.
The rest of the herd is out front, and even the ones who now like the grass is pretty dormant. And so we're able to use that track system to get them acclimated to the grass. So it's not such a drastic change. And we've had great success thus far putting both of our most metabolically oriented horses back out there without missing a beat. So we're really excited about that. And it's worked out pretty well.
So how have you incorporated Surefoot into your program for your horses, for your school horses?
So overall, we really looking at what we require of our horses, not just physically, but also mental, emotional. And, you know, one of the guiding values of Misty Meadows is acceptance. And really that means meeting horses, you know, humans particular, because that's who we're serving, but it also means opening that door up to our horses and meeting them where they're at. And sometimes being horses who, you know, we're a nonprofit, we don't have the biggest budget for buying the biggest, fanciest, totally finished horses. So you get retirees and you get horses coming from sale barns, and you don't always know when you go to see a horse what they're bringing to the party. And we recently started working with Sharon Wilsey, who was wonderful. Sharon and Laura were here back in December, and we had a clinic here with them. And I know they've been on your program a bunch. Lovely humans. And Sharon is the one who said that, you know, a lot of horses, unless they've had the same owner their whole lives, they're kind of like foster kids. And you have, you know, horses being horses and having physical challenges, but then that also comes with the emotional challenges and the stuff that they build up over time. So we use, including Surefoot, different modalities to help them stay mentally and physically fit and able to show up for our students. And I'm in the process of getting Master's in Method certified. I'm a fieldwork student for them. And that type of body work is a wonderful modality for doing certain things when there's no rider involved. And then we also use, we were recently gifted a Beamer blanket, which is also something you would use like unmounted. But the best thing about Surefoot is that we can incorporate Surefoot when, you know, without students or with students. So I've actually incorporated them into my lessons with, you know, not just helping horses be more balanced and more like proprioceptively aware by themselves, but when you put the weight of a rider, it's just a totally different ask. And so I actually have a great video.
Oh, great. Let's see that, because I know I've been looking for a photo and I can't find it, because I know one of the things you do with Surefoot is that, and I've seen this, that you bring the horses in for their lessons and you put them on the pads as they're part of their warm up.
Yes. I know, and I got all excited about showing you like Surefoot in like students. I should back up the train, because we do, you know, as our horses come in, being able to meet them where they are and realizing what they need as far as, you know, just pulling a horse out of a field and throwing them into a class. You can do that in a pinch, but over time, that's really not the best way to, you know, to handle an athlete, because they really are athletes, and we require them to physically carry weight and do so in balance and behave themselves, and, you know, all the things we want horses to do. So Surefoot is a part of how we help our horses get warmed up, whether it's coming in and riding, or whether it's coming in and just getting lunged, being able to groom them, put them on pads in the aisle, or maybe come in and we're doing some lunging in one direction and then they stand on some pads and they get a chance to explore and sort of let go of some of the stuff they're carrying, particularly like, say, like, they did just have body work a couple of days before, or maybe they got their feet done, and that just allows them to tune into themselves. I mean, everyone who is aware of Surefoot and seen your videos knows that like dropping into themselves look that they get, where they just really get a moment to slow down and stop. And it helps, I think that just the practice of using Surefoot pads as well helps everyone slow down and take a beat and breathe and connect. And when you give the horses that, you know, they exude that, and it gives the humans a chance to also breathe. So it's sort of multi-layered, from the physical to like the, you know, I would say psychological, but almost like your nervous system. You know, it gives your nervous system a chance to like check in and slow down. And we also, you know, encourage our students to stand on them and take a minute and feel your feet and connect to your body, particularly with the amount of time that everyone's spending on Zoom, with school, for the kids. Being able to come in and just take some time to physically connect to themselves while the horses have that same time too, is really fun. And Surefoot, being that they're fun colors and you can make games out of them, they're just really versatile in how we can apply them. So the video I have is actually of one of our students, Maggie, and our horse Spice. And let me see, I need to share my screen.
Yeah.
I think, boop, and share.
There we go.
Am I sharing?
Yeah, you are. You just want to make that, yeah, hit the green button. There you go.
There you go. So this is Spice. He is a 25-year-old quarter horse of ours.
Just turn the sound down on the video before you play it, because it'll.
And then this is Maggie, who's one of our students. And you'll notice a lot of smiles. And you can just see Spice. I mean, the sway and the exploring was so off the charts.
You know, I hadn't thought about this till you showed this video, but for some of your therapeutic people, the ability to feel that horse in those movements, standing on surefoot pads, would also be really interesting for them, wouldn't it?
Yes. And being able to feel a horse dropping into itself and connecting to some of those smaller muscles for posture and balance. And then when they feel one way at first, when they first get started, and then they feel a different way after they stood on the pad. So that sense of the difference, feeling the difference, the before and the after. And I know, just being one of your students, you always love to like go to the old place, and that you know, it's hard to ask a horse to go to the old place after they've stood on a surefoot pad, because it doesn't exist. But as the rider, being able to feel that difference is really helpful, and being able to just help them notice gives them that, to use a more loaded term, somatic. That's a term you guys are all familiar with, so I feel like I'm amongst my people. That somatic input, you know, and being able to help people notice those small changes in what they're feeling overall has an effect on someone's nervous system. And being able to
hit the play button on that video again?
Yes.
I have taught Maggie. She's a marvelous student, and it's so fun to see the smile on her face. I have to admit that it makes me smile to see that. It's really great.
And if somebody out there has not, you know, ever sat on a horse on surefoot pads, if you have access to pads, you got to do it. Get somebody to, like, get a buddy to help you and just sit on a horse. And sometimes it's a little startling, like Maggie's face right there. She's just kind of like, whoa, what's happening? Because they kind of click into things, or something wakes up, and all of a sudden, you know, you feel something, and it's just, it's very, it makes you giggle. It does.
And Spice is very used to being on surefoot pads, so having him on 4 pads is totally appropriate, because he's been on surefoot pads since I started going there in 2017. So this is 3 years.
Yes. Yeah. And when I've seen you know, different
3-4 years.
Yeah, almost 4 years. In March it'll be 4 years.
Yeah, wow.
So I have another video. I just need to pull up.
If you stop share, you can see your screen and find it.
Oh, there we go. Stop share.
Yep.
Back to you. There we go. Let me find it.
Okay.
And this
so while you're finding that other video, one of the things I just want to say is that, you know, these school horses work really, really hard, and there's very little that we do for them that they actually sense that it's for them. I mean, and we do a lot of things for them and to them, but surefoot is unique in that the horses find it very profound, and they want the pads. They want to stand on the pads, and so it's an opportunity to be able to do something that the horses really find profound and appreciate.
Yes.
And because yes, we do all these other things. We feed them well, we groom them, we take care of them, but it's kind of like your kids, you know, you take care of them all, but is it something that they really appreciate because it does something specifically unique to them? And I think that's where surefoot's so valuable for school horses.
Well, and it really is a part of that holistic approach to what, you know, without your horses, you don't have a program. Okay. And when, you know, it's interesting because some of our horses, our oldest horse, Chardon is not necessarily as physically able to show up, but he still loves to be around kids and can, you know, emotionally show up, and he doesn't get ridden as much. He can't have as many heavy riders, but you need to support their ability to feel good in their bodies so they can show up and feel good to be around people. And we, you know, have spent I have spent a lot of time, and I am so grateful to be working with teammates and having a boss who's supportive. As I got into more of my Masterson work, and you start reading about, oh, teeth this, and then you have feet doing this, and Daisy Bicking, who you have had on your show, and I think she's on next week.
Coming back.
She's actually just here this morning and trimmed everybody. So, you know, and she has such a wealth of information, and you get the feet right, and then you get the teeth right. And we have invested a fair amount in coming up with like a diet. We test our hay, and we make sure like they're all on, we actually feed everybody a non-grain diet. We have a Timothy pellet base with, and we put different vitamins or minerals on top of that. And I actually use an awesome software called Feed XL to balance everyone's diets to really make sure that we have everything we need, because Northeast hay is really high in iron. And we get our hay from Vermont, but even if you get it from Canada. So actually, one of the biggest nutritional benefits that we saw is that we started balancing out copper and zinc to the iron. And I know that you've talked to the guys at Rockley Farm here and talking about nutrition and getting feet right, and being able to get that element right. And then you need to keep the ball moving forward, because some of the things that get stuck in their body because they weren't feeling great. And Surefoot is just a lovely way to add to our ability to peel off those layers. And I actually love that we can do that while someone is being ridden, because there's a lot you can do in hand, and there's a lot that you can do while someone is and being lunged, but it's just different. As soon as you put that different factor of carrying someone's weight, you know, a horse might have an experience of that being painful, and getting them to let go and explore that might not be painful anymore, because, oh, look, I'm now getting the, you know, nutrients I need, so I'm not stiff and sore all the time. Or, oh, look, like we have a raging issue on the island with Lyme, so we're constantly chasing, you know, Lyme disease for horse and human. Anyone on this island would tell you that it's a challenge constantly. So it's great, because Surefoot's also a very soft and gentle way. And you have frequently spoken about, you know, particularly from that Feldenkrais, you know, background, doing things slowly, softly, deliberately, little bits at a time. So it's nothing that ever blows them out of the water, regardless of how much, you know, whether it's unmounted or mounted. And when Sharon was here, we actually talked to her about making, Sharon and Laura Wilsey, Surefoot makes a great safety object. Mm-hmm. So actually using it as something, you know, whether it's cones, whether it's the mounting block, but actually being able to go over to the scary corner and using a Surefoot pad to say, hey, I feel really good in this corner, and helping them experience physically that corner differently. And if they are mounted, there's a moment there where like the kids can actually see, and adults, I shouldn't just say it's the kids, you know, everyone feels fear. Students can see and feel, because the horse calms down, they calm down, everyone lets go and gets to shift gears. And the fact that you can have a pad that actually helps you elicit that response and get that level of relaxation, and then leave the pad there. Yeah. Right. So that's where Sharon was like, don't bring it with you, leave it in the car. Because if they start to feel that way, they go right back around and put their foot on the pad. Yeah. And you're like, oh, so that's just, I mean, and I love the community that I'm speaking to. I was really a little bit nervous today. But I knew that if I just stuck to what Misty does and how we partner with horses to help humans, that we would be okay, because you have brought such a wonderful group of awesome horse people together with all of these. And just thinking about Laura Plunkett is actually one of our board members. And you've had her on the show a bunch. And then we've worked with you for years. And now we're working with Sharon and Laura. We have Daisy as well. So it's just fantastic to have
It's a pretty special place, and it brings in some really great people. So that's,
it does. And we hope to, our goal eventually is to be able to bring great people and invite people here to be able to continue to share the good work at helping horses be their best, because they certainly help us be our best.
Yeah.
So it, yeah, it's a part of an overall program, and it's just so interesting how it can, you know, be physical. Surefoot pads can be physical and mental, emotional, social, emotional supports for horses. And there's a lot of, you know, yes, we're a therapeutic riding barn and we serve humans, but all of the values that we have, we extend to our equine partners as well. So there's the sense of showing up for them in the same way that we show up for our students who might be having challenges. And Surefoot's an awesome tool to be able to allow us to give them something that's just for them. And we're not asking, like you said, we're not asking anything of them while they're standing on them. They can do whatever they want. Oh, you don't want to stand on that pad? Like, okay, you're done with that one on the back? Okay, you know.
yep, they get choice.
They do, they get choice.
It's that's one of the tenets of Surefoot that is so critical. I want to put this picture up here. Because I think that this picture it really talks to what Misty Meadows does and how it works. This is Allie Thurston, who had a really serious injury and took a very long time to recover. And so she came with me up to Misty Meadows, and she had not been on a horse for over a year, I believe. And with Susie's assistance and having great horses at Misty Meadows, we got her back on a horse, and she cried. And that's part of the magic, I think, of Misty, is that it can provide these opportunities for people on and off island to come and really see what you guys are doing there. Because I think, you know, it's such a unique program, and you are incorporating all of these different aspects that, you know, from the webinars I've had and from other people that you've worked and learned from, and incorporating the therapeutic riding, that it really is a place to see how this can all work together, how it can just get put together in a package as opposed to just all these individual things.
And one thing about Misty that I love so much, and everyone who works here, is the idea that of having like a growth mindset. We always are looking to learn and have conversations that might not always be easy about what we've been doing. I just had this own moment myself when Laura, I mean, first when you came, no joke, you really kicked off that whole sort of like journey for me, because I had been doing things for so long in such a way. And you just have to let go of the fact you're like, oh my God, I've been, you know, let's just say wrong on some counts, you know, like
you do what you know, right? You do what you know.
You do what you know until you know better, and you don't bust yourself up when you don't know what you didn't know. And so I had my first round of that, you know, when we started working with you, and on a very deep level, I had that reorganization, and it profoundly changed the way that I actually teach, because of the effect of connecting mind and body that I really didn't have before I started working with you, where I had a wonderful, you know, and even just getting into classical dressage in general and where that comes from, and the connection that it fosters. But the effect of actually connecting and being in line with gravity and having a somatic effect on your body, and that connection that horses can give people. And so it being able to teach from that, you know, when I remember talking to you about people feeling fundamentally safe on a horse, and where when you're getting them connected to their bodies and connected to their seat and grounded through the lower half of their being and in balance with gravity, they feel safe. And that's not just a physical feeling, that's like an emotional feeling. And sometimes what that can bring up for people that I've seen over the years, just that sure thing. You don't even have to be learning how to post. You don't have to be doing anything. Just that physical sense of safety can be very profound for some people. So that blew my mind and changed the way that I taught and changed the way that I interacted with horses and the way that I ride. And then when Sharon and Laura were here in December, you know, being able to let go of, I felt like some of the things, you know, we do so much here and we're paying attention to our horses and we're learning every day about what we can do better and how we can partner more authentically with our horses, because we definitely don't believe in using them as a tool. It's something we do together. And when you can show up as teammates, that has a profound effect on the participants, both horse and human as well. But I really had to just like let go of the fact that all of a sudden I felt like I'd been yelling at horses for years, you know, like nothing subtle about what I was doing, because I didn't realize the range, and you guys have totally talked about it with them, but all the very, you know, you can start at like what 0 means to a horse versus what 0 means to a human. And so just being able to let go of what you were doing and what you thought you knew and learning something else, when you have a community like you fostered here, being able to connect to that and be exposed to just different things that have worked for so many different people, it's pretty special. And I love that Misty's the type of place that incorporates those things and we're trying to, you know, walk the talk.
So if people want to learn more about Misty, where can they go?
Our website is www.mistymeadowsmv.org. I think you have
type it in the chat and you tell me if I typed it right.
Let me pick up the chat.
You don't need the W's anymore. Oh wait, it's got a space in there. mistymeadows.org, right? Oh, it keeps putting this no space.
No, it's Misty, yeah, mistymeadowsmv.org.
mv.org. Maybe it'll let me do it this time. How's that?
Yes, mistymeadowsmv.org.
Oh, now I have a
hold on, let me see if
you do it. I am failing miserably. mistymeadowsmv.org. And you can find out more about their programs, the archery, which we didn't talk about much here, but we have a whole webinar with Annie and Danielle talking about the mounted archery. So you can go check out that webinar on the Surefoot Equine YouTube channel. And it sounds like we may be doing some sort of a program jointly up there at some point in time, if we ever get past this COVID deal, with Sharon and Laura and
yes, we'd like to, it's all in, yes, COVID, you know.
We will get through this, right? We will get through this.
Some sort of bringing, and honestly, we would like to be able to do more of that and be able to bring, you know, people together and be able to open up and be available to a wider horse community to be able to come and learn. And by all means, you know, we're doing what is right for our herd and our situation. And there's so many different ways to keep horses based on what your resources are. We're so blessed here to have these big fields where our horses can live together. And we have, you know, softer ground so they can be barefoot. And there's so many different ways to do what is best for your horses. But if anyone ever has any questions or is interested in what we're doing or how we're doing it, we are so open and would love to answer anyone's questions about what works and what has worked for us.
So we do have one question, but I don't have an answer for it. She says, are you aware of any facilities similar to Misty Meadows in Oregon or Washington State?
Not off the top of my head, but I know that they're out there. One place you might go to the PATH website, PATH International's website, definitely lists all of their facilities everywhere. PATH also, in addition to all the different ways that you can raise a horse, there's a bunch of different modalities for equine assisted activities. So PATH has a riding portion, a component. They also have their own equine assisted coaching modality. And their centers are probably pretty varied in what they can offer, and they have them listed all on their website. IGALA is what some of our equine assisted learning programs are based in, and they have a Gala network has a hefty list of participating facilities. So they might even, I'm sure, I guarantee you, they have facilities out there. And then if anyone's interested in mounted archery, that is a little more obscure. But
there are clubs. There are clubs.
There are definitely clubs, and it's NA3, National American Mounted Archers. If you just Google mounted archery in the United States, like it's MA3. And I'm sorry, I don't have it quite off the top of my head, but they are
EAGALA, right?
EGALA, yes.
EAGALA.
Yep. Equine assisted. Oh, it's EAGLA. It's an equine assisted growth and learning association. Yep, EGALA. Equine assisted growth and learning association.
Okay, and then someone's asking if you've ever offered training to other therapeutic riding programs.
Not to other programs yet, but we are working towards being able to take on folks who, how would I best put it, like mentorship opportunities. And we haven't done it yet because COVID sort of threw a wrench in things, but making ourselves available for PATH certification to people who might be locally available. And then honestly too, now with COVID, everyone's been much more online. So how we might be able to move into making ourselves available in the same way you have online and making ourselves available that way is something we're exploring as well. So we don't have a history of doing it yet, but it's absolutely something that we'd like to do because, you know, once you've taken the time and resources to figure things out and bring people together, it feels really good to be able to share it with others who might be on an earlier part of their journey. So.
Well, Susie, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing what you guys are doing at Misty Meadows. And let's see, yeah, but I don't know what TRA is. That's what I'm asking. It's I know you're a PATH certified, but I don't know what the acronym stands for. Somebody was saying they want Surefoot and Horse Speak at TRA, but I don't know what TRA is. So if you put that in the chat, that would help. Therapeutic, where is it located? Because I'm unfamiliar with it.
Are we PATH certified? I was just reading the question. Sediment Testing Center, PATH. Oh, Misty Meadows is located on Martha's Vineyard. I'm sorry if we never said that. We may have just started talking about the island.
Because we talked about Martha's Vineyard. I think we did, but that's okay. So you know, I mean, I think, Carol, one of the things it's going to take is somebody who's already a volunteer there to start talking to them about Surefoot and Horse Speak. I definitely think that when the people from the inside start talking about it, it's going to have a much better effect than people from the outside telling them what they should do. I think that's kind of true in a lot of ways. But yeah, certainly, you know, I would, you know, invite them to come and watch this webinar and so that they can learn about how other facilities are using Surefoot. Of course, this and all the webinars will be up on the Surefoot Equine YouTube channel, and we're up to 151, I believe. This is webinar 151.
Wow.
I know, it's been crazy.
That is so exciting.
Yep. So Susie, I just want to thank you so much for coming and joining me today and talking about how Surefoot's been incorporated into your program and all the things that you're doing there. It's really fantastic. And
well, thank you so much for having me. I am, and the more that we do with Surefoot and the more, you know, we have like taking videos and being able to share what we're doing and anything novel that we come up with, we would love to continue sharing what we're doing. And again, if we can be of any help to anyone out there who has any questions at all, we are here to share what we have learned along the way, and hopefully in the future be able to bring people together for some unique safe in-person learning opportunities. So we'll keep everybody posted about that as well.
Yep. And oh, what? I just forgot what I was going to say. Rats. Okay, I guess it wasn't important. All right. Well, thanks again, Susie. It's great to see you. Even if I can't see you in person, say hi to everybody at Misty.
I will. Thank you. I hope we get to see you soon.
Okay. All right. And thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.